There comes a moment in your life where everything you once clung to starts falling apart. Not because you're cursed, but because you're waking up. Spiritual awakening is not all light, crystals, and calm meditations. It's the storm that rips through your soul before peace arrives. Most people aren't ready for that storm. They think awakening will feel good. It doesn't. At first, it feels like death. The death of who you thought you were. The death of every version of you that was built for survival, not truth. You'll feel alone, misunderstood, like you're losing your mind. But what if that's the sign you're finally starting to find it? Awakening isn't for the faint-hearted. It strips you down to nothing so you can rebuild from alignment, not ego. And that's why most people never survive it. They go back, they numb it, they run. But you, if you're here, something in you is ready to face it, ready to lose what's false so you can finally live what's real. This is the truth no one tells you. The truth that will either set you free or break you wide open. 1. Awakening destroys illusions first. The first strike of awakening is not a whisper, it's a collapse. Not of your life, but of the illusions holding it together. What you thought was stability was just attachment. What you called happiness was distraction. The moment awakening begins, the universe starts peeling back layers of false safety. Your titles, your identity, your beliefs, they begin to crack. Because you can't meet your true self while still hiding behind who you were taught to be. Most people think awakening adds something like peace, joy, or clarity. But it begins by taking things away. It strips the masks, the roles, the stories. It reveals how much of your life has been performance. You start to notice how often you smiled while dying inside, how long you stayed quiet to keep the peace, how much of your power you gave away just to be accepted. The illusion is the prison, and awakening is the moment you see the bars. Everything you once relied on begins to feel foreign. Friends, goals, even your deepest desires. Not because they were wrong, but because they were built by a version of you that no longer exists. The comfort of routine becomes suffocating. The noise of small talk becomes unbearable. You don't know who you are anymore, and that's the doorway. Awakening demands you lose the life that numbed you, so you can finally build one that frees you. Truth becomes louder than convenience. You begin to crave depth over drama, meaning over attention, stillness over stimulation. But this craving isn't peaceful at first, it's painful. You feel the gap between what you've lived and what you now know. That discomfort is sacred. It's the space between illusion and integration. Most people turn back here. They numb it, ignore it, or try to force the old life to still fit. But it doesn't. And it's not supposed to. You'll question everything. Your beliefs, your habits, your purpose. Not because you're lost, but because you're finally done being found by what never truly saw you. Doubt is not failure in this phase, it's fuel. It burns away certainty so truth can emerge. The illusion taught you to chase validation. Awakening teaches you to chase nothing. Just become. And that shift is brutal, because it demands stillness in a world addicted to motion. What breaks isn't you, it's what's false. The identity built to please others. The version of you shaped by survival, not authenticity. The ideas of success that made you empty. These fragments don't leave quietly. They scream, they cling. But the louder the illusion, the closer the truth. And when the noise fades, you realize what's real doesn't have to fight for your attention. It speaks in silence. It waits for your readiness. At first, the world will not recognize you. You'll seem distant, cold, even unstable. That's because you're no longer broadcasting the same signal. The people and places aligned with your illusions begin to fall away. It feels like abandonment, but it's alignment. You're not being punished. You're being upgraded. And not everyone has a seat in your new reality. The most disorienting part is that nothing external may change at first, yet everything inside of you is shifting. You'll be in the same room, but you'll feel like a ghost. That's the death of the ego. It's losing its grip, its patterns, its comfort zone. The ego thrives on illusion. And now that you're seeing clearly, it has nothing left to anchor to. This is where fear rises. And this is where courage is born. You may grieve your old self, and you should. That version of you carried you through storms. But now, it must dissolve for the true you to emerge. This grief isn't weakness. It's a ritual. You are attending the funeral of your former identity. And the moment you stop fighting that death, rebirth begins. You don't become someone else you remember, who you were before the forgetting. So when the illusions start breaking, let them. When people leave, bless them. When confusion clouds your mind, trust the fog. Awakening isn't comfortable. It's confronting. But the truth you uncover through this fire will never abandon you. It becomes your new center. And from that place grounded, raw, and real, you begin the next phase, not as a seeker, but as someone who finally sees. 2. Emotional purging is not a breakdown, it's a breakthrough. The emotions you're feeling are not random. They're not weakness. They're not a malfunction. They are sacred messengers. When spiritual awakening begins, your nervous system opens like a floodgate, releasing years, maybe lifetimes of unprocessed pain, fear, shame, and guilt. It feels like a breakdown because it is the dismantling of emotional armor you no longer need. What comes out isn't new, it was always there, waiting to be acknowledged, crying for no reason, rage that seems misplaced, waves of grief that appear in the middle of peace. These are not setbacks. These are purges. Your body, your energy field, your subconscious, they are finally clearing out the residue of your past programming. All the emotions you once stuffed down to keep functioning are now rising to the surface. Because now, you're strong enough to feel what you used to fear. This isn't emotional chaos, it's emotional cleansing. Just like healing a wound involves some pain, releasing suppressed energy stings as it leaves. But the discomfort doesn't mean you're breaking. It means you're breaking open. The tears you shed now water the soil for who you're becoming. Don't label it as weakness. Honor it as a sacred shedding, a necessary step before peace can take root. Most people panic at this stage. They think the emotions mean something is wrong. They rush to fix, to suppress, to distract. But the brave ones lean in. They let the sadness speak. They let the anger be seen. Because they know what is felt fully no longer controls them. That's not a breakdown. That's liberation. A soul shedding its heavy layers so it can finally breathe. You were taught to fear your feelings, told that being emotional meant being unstable. But awakening reverses the narrative. It shows you that true power is the ability to feel without collapsing. You start to understand that emotional waves are not problems, they are portals. Each surge is an invitation to go deeper, to uncover wounds you forgot you buried, to reclaim parts of yourself you exiled. There will be days you feel raw as if your skin is missing. You'll be triggered by things that never bothered you before. That's because you're no longer numbing, you're awake. And in that awakened state, even the smallest feeling becomes a lesson. Emotional purging sharpens your awareness. You become a witness to your own patterns, and from that witnessing, healing begins. The mind won't always understand what the heart is doing. That's okay. Emotions don't need your permission, they need your presence. You may not have words for what you feel. You may not know where it comes from. But if you sit with it, breathe through it, and let it move without judgment, it will leave you clearer than it found you. Every purge is a silent recalibration. This phase isn't about emotional control, it's about emotional release. Let the wave move through you without trying to contain it. Let your heart shake, your breath tremble, your voice crack. You are not falling apart. You are falling into alignment. The more you allow, the faster it clears. Suppression delays your becoming. Surrender accelerates it. You will feel lighter, not because life becomes easier, but because your soul is no longer carrying weight that was never yours. Emotional purging removes not only your pain, but the inherited pain of ancestors, the collective, the conditioning you absorbed unknowingly. You are breaking a chain every time you allow yourself to feel without shame, and that is spiritual courage. So the next time your emotions feel overwhelming, pause. Don't judge. Don't run. Breathe. Because what's rising isn't meant to destroy you, it's meant to free you. These are not breakdowns. These are breakthroughs, and each one brings you closer to your unshakable truth. 3. Loneliness is a portal, not a punishment. Loneliness, during spiritual awakening, is not a sign that something is wrong, it's a sign that everything false is falling away. The people you once called friends might drift. The environments you used to find comfort in may now feel foreign. This isn't isolation for the sake of suffering. It's divine separation. A sacred pause to realign your energy without external noise clouding your truth. Most people misread this silence. They rush to fill the void with distractions, with company, with noise. But awakening requires space. Space to feel, to unlearn, to hear your own soul without interference. Loneliness creates that space. And in it, you begin to meet yourself, not the version shaped by others, but the version molded by truth, by stillness, by raw awareness. This is the phase where your soul pulls you inward, not to punish you, but to prepare you. You're being stripped of attachments that can't survive the higher frequency you're stepping into. The loneliness isn't an absence, it's a cleansing. You're learning how to be your own source of validation, your own sanctuary, because where you're going, inner strength will be your foundation. You'll miss people who never truly saw you. You'll long for connections that once distracted you from your wounds. But slowly, the ache softens. You begin to realize the loneliness is teaching you what real connection should feel like. It's showing you the difference between being surrounded and being understood, between being accepted and being aligned. In this solitude, something beautiful happens. Your inner voice gets louder. You start to notice the guidance, the synchronicities, the subtle shifts in your energy. You begin to listen to your body, your intuition, your truth. The silence becomes sacred. The aloneness becomes a doorway, a portal. And through it, you begin to remember who you were before the world told you who to be. Spiritual loneliness carves out the old so the new can take form. It detaches you from the roles, masks, and identities that were never real. Yes, it hurts. Yes, it's heavy. But it's also precise. Every relationship that falls away creates space for one that's aligned. Every lonely night is preparing you for a life that feels like home, not performance. Some days you'll feel like no one understands you. That's because you're being called to understand yourself. The more you embrace the solitude, the more self-aware you become. You see your wounds, but you also see your gifts. You face your shadows, but you also meet your power. Loneliness is the mirror in which your real self is revealed, unapologetic and unfiltered. Don't rush this phase. Don't try to escape it too soon. The discomfort you feel is the detox of dependence. You are learning how to stand in your own energy, unshaken, unneedy, whole. And from this wholeness, future relationships will be built not on emptiness, but on overflow. Not on needing to be completed, but on choosing from fullness. Eventually, the loneliness will end not because you go back to old connections, but because you attract new ones. Ones that match your evolved frequency. You'll meet people who see you, feel you, and walk beside you not because they need you, but because they align with you. But they'll only appear once you've met yourself fully. So if you're feeling alone right now, don't resist it. Let the portal open. Walk through it. This space was designed for your rebirth. The loneliness is not exile. It's initiation, a sacred womb where the false you dissolves and the real you begins. 4. You can't go back, and that's the point. There comes a point in your spiritual awakening when the old life no longer fits. You may try to return to your routines, old friendships, and former roles, but something inside you resists. Not out of pride, but because you've changed. The vibration that once matched those experiences has dissolved. And trying to go back feels like forcing yourself into clothes you've long outgrown. You'll miss the comfort of familiarity, the ease of going through life on autopilot. But that version of life was built on illusions, masks, and survival patterns. It wasn't you, it was who you thought you needed to be. Now that you've tasted truth, there's no pretending anymore. You can't unknow what you know, and your soul won't let you return to what once numbed you. The people around you may not understand. They'll ask why you've changed, why you've become distant, why you don't engage the same. But you can't shrink to make others comfortable anymore. Your boundaries have become sacred. Your energy, too precious. This isn't about superiority, it's about authenticity. You can't go back to fake smiles and empty conversations. Spiritual growth comes with a cost. The loss of who you once were. The death of your old identity is painful, Yes, but necessary. Every awakening is a funeral for the former self. You'll grieve the version of you that played it safe, people-pleased, stayed silent. But that version had to die so your truth could breathe. You can't rebirth without first releasing. Sometimes you'll wish you never woke up. That life was easier when you didn't question, when you didn't feel so deeply. But ease without truth is a cage. And now that you've seen the door, your soul won't let you lock yourself back in. Going back isn't an option, not because it's forbidden, but because it would betray your evolution. The discomfort you feel now is a sign of expansion, not failure. The void between who you were and who you're becoming is sacred ground. It's here where you rebuild, brick by conscious brick, no longer shaped by the past, but sculpted by purpose. Yes, it's lonely. Yes, it's confusing. But it's also the birthplace of alignment. Trying to return to your old self is like stepping into a burnt house and pretending it's still home. The structure may remain, but the spirit is gone. Your awakening burned away everything inauthentic. And now, you stand in the ashes not to mourn, but to rebuild something real, something that matches who you truly are. There's a reason spiritual awakening feels like disorientation. It's because the compass of your soul is recalibrating. What used to guide you no longer applies. Your values shift. Your priorities flip. What once felt urgent now feels empty. This inner rewiring is the map to your new timeline. One where truth is the compass, not fear. It's okay to miss the past, to mourn what felt safe. But don't confuse comfort with alignment. That life was built before you knew your power, before you knew your worth. Now that you've awakened, everything must align not just externally, but energetically. You're not rejecting the past, you're releasing it with reverence. And no, you won't have all the answers right away. But the path ahead will reveal itself one aligned step at a time. Every time you choose presence over performance, inner peace over external validation, you move closer to your true life. One that doesn't require pretending, one that doesn't require going back. So if you're in that space right now, torn between what was and what's becoming, choose becoming. Let the past stay past. Let the old self rest. The unknown isn't empty. It's sacred. It's where the next version of you is waiting. Not in the echoes of yesterday, but in the whispers of now. Because the truth is, you were never meant to return. That's why the old life doesn't feel like home anymore. Because your soul has already moved on, and your only job now is to follow it forward. 5. Awakening feels like dying because it is. There's a reason your awakening feels unbearable. It mimics death. But not of your body, of your identity. The version of you that was built from pain, fear, and expectations begins to crumble. It's not just a mindset shift, it's a full collapse. Your mind screams, your emotions spiral. Because everything familiar starts to vanish, and your soul starts to rise. You're not just shedding habits, you're shedding lifetimes. Programs passed down from generations, beliefs planted in childhood, masks you've worn for acceptance. These layers begin to burn away, and what's left is raw, unfamiliar, and real. The ego fights to survive, but the soul quietly expands underneath it all. You feel like you're losing your mind. But in truth, you're losing the mind that was never yours to begin with. The conditioned mind, the reactive mind, the voice that echoed your past, not your purpose. In awakening, that voice grows faint, and in its silence, your truth begins to whisper. It hurts, not because something's wrong, but because something false is being removed. The suffering is the resistance. The pain is the friction between the old and the emerging. And most people mistake this death for destruction. But it's rebirth. It's divine demolition. It's the sacred unraveling before the new you emerges. Grief is inevitable. You mourn the dreams you once chased, the people you once needed, the identities you once defended, but you don't miss them. You miss the illusion of safety they gave you. Awakening reveals that safety isn't external, it's internal, and building it from within is the painful part most avoid. This death is silent. There's no ceremony. No one claps for your inner breakdowns. Most won't even notice. You'll walk through crowds with a war in your soul and a transformation in your eyes. Because awakening doesn't make noise, it makes shifts. Subtle ones that change everything. You'll isolate, not to escape people, but to meet yourself, the real self, the one buried under performance and pleasing. And in that solitude, you begin to remember, not who the world told you to be, but who you always were before the world interfered. There's no timeline for this death, no manual. Some awaken slowly, others are thrown into it by loss, heartbreak, or deep frustration. But the process is the same. Old structures fall, and something eternal emerges. And that emergence is what scares most people, because it can't be controlled. It can only be surrendered to. The ego will beg you to return, to numb, to distract, to pretend. But your soul is already walking ahead, and every step you take away from falsehood feels like dying. But it's also the most honest you've ever been. You're not going crazy, you're going conscious. This death demands courage. Not loud, dramatic courage, quiet courage. The kind that sits in stillness and says, I will not abandon myself this time. Even when everything crumbles, even when nothing makes sense. You stay, you breathe, you trust the undoing. And make no mistake, you'll lose people, environments, roles, even dreams, because you're no longer vibrating at the same frequency that attracted them. Let it happen. Loss is part of this death. But what you lose isn't your life, it's your limits. Every fear, every breakdown, every tear, it's carving space, making room for something greater. And while it may feel like you're disappearing, you're actually reappearing as your truest self, the one not shaped by fear, but by truth. And on the other side of this inner death, you'll realize you didn't lose yourself. You found yourself beneath the rubble, the one who was always there, unafraid, unapologetic, untouched by the noise. That's who awakening reveals, and that's why it demands death first. So when it feels like everything is ending, smile quietly, because it is. But only the version of you that wasn't really living anyway. The death you're experiencing, it's sacred, it's necessary, and it's making space for a life you've never even imagined. And that life, it begins the moment you stop fearing the death and start honoring the rebirth. 6. Most people quit in the void phase. The void is the most misunderstood part of awakening. It's the space between who you used to be and who you're becoming. Nothing feels stable. Nothing makes sense. You're no longer attached to your old self, but the new self hasn't fully formed. It's a space of silence, uncertainty, and deep spiritual confusion. Most people think the void means failure. They assume they've taken a wrong turn or missed a sign. But the truth is, the void is sacred. It's the cocoon between the caterpillar and the butterfly. It's the pause between the inhale and the exhale. It's not punishment. It's preparation. You can't rush through the void. There's no checklist, no map, no shortcut. The universe pulls back your comfort, your clarity, your identity, not to punish you, but to strip away all that's not truly you. And in that emptiness, the real you begins to form. This is where people panic. The mind craves answers, certainty, labels, and in the void, none of that exists. You're asked to trust without evidence, to walk with no destination, to feel lost and still believe you're on the right path. That's why most quit here. It's too quiet for their ego. There's nothing glamorous about the void. No external rewards, no applause, just long nights, inner battles, and the haunting question, who am I now? But if you sit with that question long enough, something beautiful happens. You stop looking for an answer, and you start embodying it. The void empties you, not to break you, but to make space. Space for new truth, new energy, a new frequency that can't coexist with your old patterns. And it's in that space of nothingness that the seed of your highest timeline is quietly planted. But this is also where people try to go back. Back to the job, the relationship, the version of themselves that felt certain even if it was misaligned. The pain of the unknown makes the familiar look safe, but going back never works. You don't fit there anymore. The void is where time feels warped. Days blur together, motivation disappears. The things you used to love no longer satisfy you. That's because your soul is recalibrating. You're not lazy, you're realigning. Your energy is shifting into something your mind hasn't caught up with yet. Most people misunderstand the silence. They think it means they've been abandoned, that the universe has gone quiet. But the silence isn't absence. It's alignment. It's the divine telling you, don't fill this space, feel it. Let it wash over you. Let it shape you. In the void, your nervous system is rewiring. Your emotions are detoxing. Your perception is being cleansed. But because you can't see the progress, you doubt it. You think nothing's happening, when in reality everything is happening, just not in a way your ego can track. You'll feel tempted to escape, to distract, to numb. But every time you do, you delay the emergence of your new self. The only way out of the void is through it, through the boredom, through the pain, through the aching stillness that tests your patience and faith. This is where most spiritual seekers turn back. They chase the next technique, the next guru, the next high, but no external tool can speed up the void, because the void isn't a problem to solve, it's a womb, a sacred in-between where soul work is being done. In the void, identity dissolves. The roles you played, the beliefs you held, the stories you told all fade. And in that dissolution, the truth begins to emerge. Quiet, subtle, real, but you have to be still enough to hear it. Sometimes the void brings up your deepest fears, not because you're regressing, but because you're finally still enough to face them. These fears aren't new. They were always there, hidden beneath noise. The void just makes them visible, and visibility is the first step to healing. You may feel like nothing is moving forward, but beneath the surface, timelines are collapsing, energetic contracts are dissolving, and your future self is being magnetized. The void is not stillness, it's restructuring. The people who survive the void are not the smartest or the strongest. They're the ones who surrender, who stop trying to fix the silence, who stop demanding answers, who simply allow themselves to be unmade, so they can be remade in truth. You'll know you're healing when you no longer panic in the unknown, when the silence doesn't scare you, when stillness becomes a sanctuary, not a threat. That's the gift of the void. It makes peace with what once terrified you. Eventually, the new self begins to whisper, not loudly, not all at once, but gently. You start remembering pieces of your purpose. You feel tiny sparks of joy. You sense a new direction forming. That's the emergence. That's the shift. That's the proof the void was never empty. The version of you on the other side of the void, they're deeper, softer, sharper, real, not built on trauma or approval, but on alignment. They move with clarity. They speak with resonance. They love with truth. But to meet them, you must endure the in-between. So if you're in the void now, don't quit. Don't run. Don't numb. Sit with it. Honor it. Trust it. Because while your ego may call it a death, your soul knows it's a birth. 7. Awakening isn't a one-time event. It's a lifelong realignment. Spiritual awakening isn't a destination you reach, it's a process you live. Most people think it's a single lightning bolt moment, a sudden blast of enlightenment that changes everything forever. But the truth is, awakening is a continual peeling back of layers. One moment cracks you open, but many moments refine you. Each time you think you've reached clarity, life presents a deeper layer to uncover. You'll awaken to one truth, only to realize it was built upon a subtler illusion. It's humbling. Just when you feel certain, the universe shows you another blind spot, another frequency to rise into. The soul doesn't evolve in a straight line. It spirals. You revisit old wounds, not because you failed to heal, but because you're now strong enough to heal them at a higher octave. That's the nature of awakening, returning again and again, each time with more light, more awareness, more depth. This is why real spiritual growth feels like both remembering and unlearning. You're not just discovering who you are, you're releasing everything you're not. And that's a lifelong journey. No final breakthrough, no permanent enlightenment, just wave after wave of becoming. The ego wants the awakening to be finished. It wants a certificate, a badge, a label that says, "I've arrived." But the soul knows there is no arrival, only continuous surrender, only deeper and deeper levels of alignment with truth, love, and presence. Sometimes your growth will feel fast, other times, painfully slow. There will be weeks of clarity, followed by months of confusion. That's not regression, it's recalibration. You're being adjusted, fine-tuned, initiated into the next frequency your soul is ready to carry. Each layer you pass through asks something new of you: the courage to release, the faith to trust, the humility to admit you don't know. These aren't one-time traits, they're recurring invitations. And every time you say yes, your light gets clearer, stronger, and more grounded. You might think you've healed your fear, only to find it returning years later in a new disguise. Don't shame yourself for this. That's not failure, it's feedback. Feedback from a wiser self who now sees the fear more clearly and is ready to meet it more fully. This is why spiritual maturity requires patience, not just with the world but with yourself. You'll outgrow old beliefs, only to discover new ones hiding underneath. The journey demands gentleness. Realignment isn't violent, it's graceful, even in its mess. Some awakenings will be loud, others silent. Some arrive in heartbreak, others in stillness. Some shake your world, others whisper through intuition. There's no single way to awaken, and no fixed timeline. It's as unique as your soul's blueprint. There will be times when you feel like you've lost your way. That's part of it too. The feeling of being lost is often a sign that your old map no longer fits the terrain. Realignment means walking without a map, guided by inner resonance instead of external validation. The further you go, the less you cling. The people, patterns, and ideas that once defined you fall away. Not because you've become cold, but because you've become clearer. You no longer align with anything that doesn't reflect your truth. Realignment teaches you that growth doesn't always feel good. Sometimes it's quiet, sometimes it's grief, sometimes it's loneliness. But beneath all that discomfort, something sacred is building. You're being reconstructed from the inside out. This path asks you to question everything, especially the parts of you that feel most certain, because certainty can be a defense mechanism. Real awakening invites wonder, openness, and curiosity. It's not about having all the answers, it's about learning to love the questions. The deeper your awakening, the simpler your life becomes. Not because you've escaped chaos, but because you've learned to remain centered within it. You stop reacting and start responding. You stop controlling and start allowing. Over time, you'll notice your reactions soften. Your judgments quiet. Your need to prove disappears. That's realignment. Not dramatic, but powerful. A subtle shift in the way you hold yourself, speak your truth, and show up in your presence. Awakening rewires your nervous system. It recalibrates your intuition. It teaches you to trust invisible guidance more than visible evidence. You begin to make decisions from alignment, not anxiety. From purpose, not pressure. You'll lose people, versions of yourself, entire chapters, but what stays is what's meant to, and what leaves. That's the echo of your evolution. Each ending is a sign that your vibration no longer fits the frequency of what once was. And even when you think the journey is done, life will tap you on the shoulder and ask, "Are you ready to go deeper?" That's the beauty of it. You're never finished. You're just unfolding. One truth, one breath, one alignment at a time. So let go of the idea that awakening is a destination. It's not a mountaintop, it's a path, a rhythm, a relationship with your evolving soul. Walk it with grace, walk it with wonder, and know that every step is sacred because you are becoming real. You weren't meant to stay asleep, but you also weren't meant to awaken without resistance. The pain you're feeling? It's not punishment, it's purification. It's the universe removing everything that can't go with you into the next version of your life. Most people stop here. They confuse discomfort with a wrong path. But you're starting to understand. The breakdown is the initiation. The darkness is not your enemy, it's the place where your true light is reborn. So if you're hurting, keep going. If you're confused, Don't shut down, go deeper. If you feel like everything is falling apart, look closer. Something sacred is coming together. This journey isn't easy, but it's real. And anything real is worth enduring. You don't have to survive your awakening by being strong. You survive it by being honest. Honest with what no longer fits, what no longer heals, what no longer feels like you. Trust the unraveling. Because what's coming after this shedding is the truest version of you you've ever known. If this message reached a deep part of you, don't just watch a line. Subscribe. Return to this space anytime you forget why it hurts. Because pain is not the end, it's the signal that you're about to begin again. Real, free, awake.